Now, the Australian Rugby League team last toured Britain in 1990. They met Wakefield Trinity in early October. They won 36-18, but they had 3 men sent off, and it was no more friendly off the field afterwards. Bobby Fulton, who was the Australian coach then, was still fuming about the referee when Harry Gratian approached him with his microphone.
No, I'm not unhappy with him. I think he should be unhappy with his own performance. I mean, I'm not going to criticise referees. I mean, the guy is just obviously a man that shouldn't be out in the middle.
But the one thing that the Australians have done over the last 12 years is play good rugby. Didn't you feel at the end of your performance today that disintegrated a bit?
Well, that's your opinion. We didn't instigate the 2 incidents, right? They were instigated by the English players and from Wakefield Trinity. Now, the fact of the matter is that we will not take a backward step. The penalties today, probably you don't know much about rugby league. I don't know. I've never met you before. But the point is...
What right have you got to say that?
I don't even know who you are.
I'm asking you.
I don't know who you are.
Well, I'm asking you.
Who are you? Do you understand, right, the way the game is played? That's all I'm saying.
Yes, I do.
Well, that's fine. OK, well, if you understand the way the game is played, that's your opinion as a commentator. When you ask me a question, I will answer you. Now, don't you attack me, right, for the way I answer questions. If you want to interview me, if you don't want to, turn the tape off.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And incidentally, Harry does know a bit about rugby league. He's now one of the sport's leading administrators. So, to a telltale little golfing story.
I've always wanted to play golf, and so I thought it would be a good thing to know the rudiments of golf.
Have you learnt a lot?
Yes, I have. How to hold the golf cue.
Yeah, now, how many lessons was that, did you say? Changing tack, how do you envisage Julian Wilson in a top hat, impeccably Aldertonian, calm, unflappable, and beautifully spoken, the voice of racing on television? Well...
So 300 years ago, King Charles II would hack up this very hill on his old hack, Old Rowley, and stand in this very spot and watch with fascination racehorses being trained. Very little has changed since then. Of course, what has changed since then is motorbikes.
Now, Julian's a fanatical Swindon Town fan, and he normally saves those words for another home defeat. And it's a good job this was a recorded interview.
Now, what about the reputation of the Derby, George? Because it has taken a little bit of a pasting in the last 2 years.
Generously won the race 2 years ago. He was a very, very good horse. He won the Irish Derby and the King George. He was a smashing horse. Last year, actually made a bit of a bollocks of things with the new stand, which didn't open until...
I don't think you can say bollocks. just want to say...
a nonsense.
Yeah, absolutely. So last year, Epsom...
made a bit of a nonsense of things with the new stand.
George Enna of the Racing Post with Rob Nothman. But try unravelling this piece of racing folklore.
But we end this look back at the year with the comment of the year. A remark that, while said, I'm sure, with the best of intentions, takes some believing. It came from a certain dog track photo finish man who was asked to enlighten listeners as to the explanation of a short head.
The dog's nose should be in front of the eyes.
The dog's nose should be in front of the eyes. A definition that continues to puzzle me, but one...
This one, mind, wasn't quite so funny.
It won't be long before they're called up into line. We're coming up to 2 o'clock now, and this is the Game Spirit Chase. Named, of course, by Game Spirit, a lovely horse that was owned by Her Majesty the Queen Mother, who dropped dead here after a very long and distinguished career. They're under orders...
A rare bloomer from Peter Bromley. Another famous racing and football commentator, Raymond Glendenning, revolutionised sports broadcasting after the war with his rapid-fire delivery, but not even he could keep up with a 1958 Manchester November handicap.
Now, they're under starters' orders, but they're off, and I can see a faint white blur in the mist, but I'm afraid it's absolutely hopeless for me to even attempt to identify them. I just tried to train my binoculars through the mist, but I'm afraid that you get just as much mist as anything else.
And it didn't get any better.
I should think now they've gone about 2 furlongs to home. Here's something now coming into the final furlong. It's Courtler. It is still Courtler. He's been challenged by Donna Lollo. They're a long way ahead of... Goodness me, I don't think it's Frank Tuesday. But that's all we saw of the race. Brioche finishing very nearly last. And Chandlana finishing very last. Well, I'm sorry, both Claude and I thought it was Courtler, but actually it was Paul Jones. I think it was Paul Jones that was given out, wasn't it? Paul Jones was given as the winner. Then Donna Lollo, second. And the third one Was it Brancusi? Was Brancusi. Well, I'm sorry for that, but really it was just completely impossible to find out anything at all about the race.
On to cricket in a moment, but Brian Johnston, who naturally features there, also has a nice racing story.
The late Duke of Norfolk used to tell how he once had a trainer called Sid Fidel. Whenever the Duke had a runner and couldn't be at the meeting, Sid used to send him a lengthy telegram giving him full details of the race. And this in spite of the fact that they always met anyway every Friday to discuss the week's racing. So the Duke told him to send very short telegrams in future, and then they could talk about the race in more detail when they met on Friday. One Tuesday soon afterwards, the Duke had a horse running, and that evening received the following telegram. SF, 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 SF. He was pleased that Sid had done as he'd asked. When they met on Friday, he asked him to explain what on earth it meant. "Oh, Your Grace, it's quite easy," said Sid. "Started, farted, slipped and fell. See you Friday, Sid Fidel."
And in our final racing clip, we eavesdrop on Robin Bailey trying to record the racing results.
350, number 2, Rip Snorter, 20 to 1. 10, Albert, 3 to 1. 9, Sol... You bastard. OK, we'll come to the 350 again. Pine Ridge Lad, 3 to 1, 6 ran. And finally, the 350, number 2, Rip Snorter. Oh, come on, Miguel.
Sorry.
Oh, bugger off.
What was funny about that? Now, cricket, Brian Johnston again.
Up comes Hilda now. Drills this one outside the off-stump, and that's steered away on the offside, and a nice bit of fielding by Julian there, and there might be overthrows here. There are. He throws back, so they've taken 2 already, one of them an overthrow, and they're taking the second overthrow, so 3 runs to not from the ball. He's steered from outside the off-stump, and there are going to be more, and there are going to be another 4. This is going to be quite sensational. 4 overthrows added to that, so Knott has got 7, and they're trying to work which end they've got to go.
Spencer signalled 6.
No, Spencer signalled 6 then, which is extraordinary, but they've got to work out which end to go. Not you should be the other end if they run 7, chap, that's right. You go up there, they're arguing like mad, and they're both coming to the same end, but it must be right for Knott to go to the other end.
1 + 2 + 4.
And both the umpires are consulting now. This is the best muddle, this is marvellous. Oh, it's lovely.
Nothing like a good cocker to set Johners off. Here's another one.
Ball runs up again. Bells outside the off-stump, a nice looking stroke, played square on the outside, and he's going up towards the square point boundary, but he won't reach there. It's just below it, and it's fielded by Haynes, who stops it there, and they take 3 runs. A square drive by Russell, played a little bit late, but all on the ground, and he gets 3 good runs there.
Board's gone up to 250.
And the 251 is on the board, hence the cheers from the crowd. That's the score you wanted to see, Fred, they heard you say.
103 off that ball.
It's gone to 350 now. It's going to 4. Any advance on 4. Yes, any advance on 5. Any advance on 6. It's 651. 751. 800. It's like these fireworks which come down. 951. It's only 51 now.
The West Indies have capitulated. They've left the field.
51 for 5 on the board. As Walsh comes up and bowls to Ramprakat, who turns his off his legs. He might get a run there, goes a bit wide, but they don't run. It's now, as it should be, 151 for 5.
Bill Frindle in the box there with Brian. Now, Christopher Martin Jenkins came up with a somewhat startling revelation during the 1988 West Indies tour of England.
And Patterson, I can reveal, by courtesy of Tony Cozier, is bowling in a box. And I've known of no other bowler ever in the history of cricket who was bowled in a box. And I'll tell you why in a moment. He comes in past umpire Palmer and bowls outside the off-stump, and Gooch cuts him for 4 between gully and third slip. Steers him, perhaps, would be a better description. It got a bit of lift, but he was in control of the shot. And Gooch goes to 5 and the total to 7. Well, the reason is that he follows through with his right arm and sometimes hits himself in a painful place. So it's really rather extraordinary, that, isn't it? So away goes the muscular Patterson with important parts protected, and he bowls to Gooch, and Gooch goes into line to a ball of good length, going onto the back foot rather than the front, plays it up to mid-on where Curtly Ambrose fields.
And here's another CMJ titbit, this one a little indiscreet.
In comes Ambrose and bowls to Capel down the leg side. Capel comes inside the line, and the ball goes through at about hip height, and Ambrose really is bowling in an inspired fashion. I heard the smack of lips behind me, and I better not reveal who it was that was kissing Jilly Cooper. His wife is in the Swanage, so we don't want to suggest anything. 126 for 4. Up comes Ambrose and bowls, and Capel gets bravely into line here, gets right up onto his toes and drops the ball down into the gully, where it's fielded by Desmond Haynes underneath his white floppy sun hat, which is being worn as on a sugar plantation. Another smack of lips behind me. I'm beginning to get rather jealous.
It was Brian Johnston, of course. Now, Brian attracted more than his fair share of unusual mail, and he chose this moment to unleash one such letter on his friend and colleague, the blunt-speaking Yorkshireman, Don Mosey.
Marshall running in, quite fast now, comes in, goes outside the off-stump, forward goes Athy, and it just goes to that silly point position or silly mid-off, Alston Fields, and there's no run there. Afraid you'll be interested. A chap called David Taylor from Sunderland has sent me a definition of the word mosey, which I think, knowing the alderman, you'll be interested to hear. The word is not in the dictionaries, but is in frequent use in the Midland counties to express the condition of a turnip, when the interior has become dry and fibrous, or of an apple when it is withered and juiceless. It is equivalent to the term woolly, which is used in a similar sense in the southern counties. So the alderman now knows why he was called Mosey. Thank you, David. The alderman's blushing. And here's Marshall running in now to bowl to Athy. Silly point in the short leg, and he pushes out square on the offside again. He won't get a run as he goes to Benjamin coming in from cover.
The alderman was Brian's name for Don Mosey. Trevor Bailey, the former England cricketer, he called the Boyle, a nickname that tripped him up gloriously one day in the Test match special commentary box.
I'm joined by the by the Boyle, sitting alongside me, as Hadley comes up now. And Burles is one well pitched up outside the off-stump and hit away to Edgar at cover, and there's no run.
And there was more glee when Christopher Martin Jenkins lost his bearings during the '88 series with the Windies.
A great occasion here, really, for Trent Bridge. This is the 150th anniversary on Saturday. It was the exact day, 150 years ago, when play first took place at Trent Bridge in 1838. So it's really a great year for them. They've got a big appeal on, which is going very well to make ground improvements and to help youth cricket throughout the county. And so let's hope that they have fine days, 5 of them. And yes...
an occasion as well, an anniversary for West Indies England Test matches. It's the 60th anniversary, the Diamond Jubilee of West Indies against England in Test cricket. The first test between the two having been played in 1928.
And so quickly, on your head, you'll tell us how many England won, how many West Indies, how many draws, quick.
West Indies have won more than England.
I'm afraid they probably have. The bearded wonder will tell us, sir.
Well, that series was an interesting one because England won all 3 matches by an innings. I don't think we want to remember anything else that's happened since, do we?
What is the actual total of... Would you mind revealing it all, Beardus? Because that'll be interesting. But England have never yet beaten West Indies. The first match I saw them play here was in 1950, when Warren and Weeks made a little partnership of
300 odd.
Yeah.
Well, this is the 50th match between the two sides in England, and it's 20 wins to the West Indies, 14 to England. The overall figures are played 90, England 21, West Indies 35, 34 drawn.
Quite a long way to go. Well, the two umpires, Dickie Bird and Jackie Birkinshaw, making their way out. I can tell you the weather's going to be good because Dickie's got his white cap on. Jackie Birkinshaw hasn't got a cap on at all. Christopher Martin Jenkins will be starting the commentary, so he's going to get into... He got up early this morning to come to the ground and report on what the weather was going to be. He was quite right. He said it was going to be fine, and it is fine. And as he makes his way into the seat, Albert Katie, just reminding anybody, or anyone who's just switched on, England have won the toss, have elected to bat, and they've left out Hemmings and Thomas from their 13. Christopher, good morning to you, Jenkins.
Good morning to you, Brian, and good morning to everybody. And lovely it is to be back at Old Trafford.
Oh,
classic style, isn't it? Lovely it is to be back at Trent Bridge in a special year, 150th year of the existence of this lovely ground. And here comes Viv Richards. Perhaps it was he that was making me think of Old Trafford, because that's one of his best favourite grounds.
But CMJ's momentary confusion was nothing compared to this poor newsreader.
Michael Holding's also fit to play. England has won loss and bat. In Victor Radio News, it's 6 minutes past 4. I don't really know what that means.
Yes, you don't know what you're talking about there with cricket, do you?
What is loss and bat?
They've won the toss and they've decided to bat.
Oh, it's a spelling mistake.
Tony Greig, of course, was the extrovert England cricket captain in 1976 when the West Indies' first fearsome fast-bowling attack of Roberts, Holding and Daniel were mowing down the world's best batsmen. Typically, but none too wisely, he threw down this challenge.
I like to think that people are building these West Indians up because I'm not really quite sure that they're as good as everyone thinks they are. I think people tend to forget that it wasn't long ago that they were beaten 5-1 by the Australians. They struggled very much to handle them. And they only just managed to keep their heads above water against the Indians just a short while ago as well. Sure, they've got a couple of fast bowlers, but really I don't think we're going to run into anything any more sensational than Thompson and Lilly, and so really I'm not all that worried about them. One of the things that does happen in this country, which doesn't happen in other countries, is that prior to a test series, if there's any sort of excitement in the opposition camp, our press tend to build them up to be huge, great heroes, and they don't really say too much about us. But I think, really, you've got to look very closely. Over this last game we've just played in against the West Indies now, I think the West Indian captain, Clive Lloyd, must be very, very worried about his batting. I saw Alvin Kallicharran batting out there, and he would be the first to admit he's never played worse in his life. Lawrence Rowe doesn't look a test player. Now, it's I'm saying, making some big statements, and these guys might well make hundreds. But at the moment, I would think, if I was captain of the West Indies and saw my players playing the way they did down here, I would be a little bit worried. I think that when you pick England sides, you pick the best team. And I think it would be fair to say that, in my opinion and in the opinion of the selectors, that Brian Close is in the best side. I think you've got to sum up your opposition. You've got to try and work out how you're going to tackle them. And one of the things which obviously must be done is that we've got to handle these fast bowlers. It's been the one thing that we've fallen down on in the past, and we're trying to protect against that. Brian Close is a very strong man, a very brave man, and we think he's the best man for the job right now. It really doesn't interest me how old he is, and because I need a back pad fielder. I've got someone who could field close, and I've got someone who will stand up and let them hit him all day, and he won't worry about it. We've got a lot of young batsmen, certainly a lot of young batsmen who are probably going to be very fine players, but I think that quite a few of them aren't quite there yet, and it would be a bit tragic to slip a young man in and see him dismissed perhaps for a pair, as was the case with Graham Gooch, and then perhaps disappear when really he hadn't had a chance to settle down in county cricket. So I would rather go for a man like Close now, and then perhaps later on in the day bring in one of the youngsters, one or two of the youngsters perhaps. You must remember the West Indians, these guys, if they get on top, they're magnificent cricketers. But if they're down, they grovel. And I intend, with the help of Close here and a few others, to make them grovel.
It was probably the biggest brick ever dropped by a Test captain, certainly since Jardine's bodyline theory rocked the empire in the 30s. But to Greig's credit, as England left the field at the Oval beaten 3-0 in the series, he dropped to his knees and grovelled himself. Now, cakes, of course, have always been a crucial part of the humour and the practical joking on Test Match Special, as in this instance.
Walsh runs in now to bowl to Lamb. Lamb plays up one with a bat angle this time. He hit it off the meat, and it goes all on the ground to Arston, who's a fine fielder, left-handed, and feels that a cover, no run. And Ollie, what do you think of that last stroke?
Very good shot. I enjoyed. I mean, Alan Lamb takes the... You're just trying to do me here because I've got a mouthful of cake.
Yeah, you have. You're spitting it all into the microphone, too. Really, Ollie. In the middle of an over, you can't resist the cream puffs.
Brian Johnston catching out Colin Milburn. But nothing ever caught out John Arlott. Never at a loss for words. He actually coined a new one during the 1975 Lord's Test.
And a freaker. We've got a freaker down the wicket now, not very shapely, and it's masculine. And I would think it's seen the last of its cricket for the day. The police are mustered, so are the cameramen, and Greg Chappell, and... No, he's had his load. He's being embraced by a blonde policeman. And this may be his last public appearance. But what a splendid one. And he's now being marched down in the final exhibition past at least 8,000 people in the man's stand, some of whom perhaps have never seen anything quite like this before.
A freaker! What a great word. What a shame it never caught on. John Arlott on the first Test match streaker. And many different sizes and shapes, of course, have followed his example. Not happily, though, Jonathan Agnew, the Leicester and England opening bowler, who was appointed the BBC Radio cricket correspondent in 1991. All was going swimmingly until the fifth Test at the Oval against the West Indies.
Well, meanwhile, both have been joined by Lewis, and both of them at the end out in a most extraordinary way.
Oh, it was ever so sad, really. But it was interesting because we were talking, and he had just started to loosen up. He had started to
perhaps look for the big blows through the offside to anything a little bit wide. And I remember saying, it looks as if Ian Botham was just starting to play his old way, and it was a bouncer. And he tried to hook it. I mean, why he tried to hook Ambrose, I'm not sure, because on this sort of pitch, exactly, it's a very difficult prospect. It smacked him on the helmet, I think. I'm not quite sure where it did actually hit him.
Shoulder, I think.
Shoulder, as he tried to hook, and he lost his balance. And as he tried to, he knew, this is the tragic thing about it, he knew exactly what was going to happen. He tried to step over the stumps and just flipped a bail with his right
He more or less tried to do the splits over it, and unfortunately the inner part of his thigh must have just removed the bail.
He just didn't quite get his leg over.
Anyhow, he did very well indeed, batting 131 minutes and hit 3 fours. And then we had Lewis playing extremely well for his 47 not out. Agus, do stop it. And he was joined by De Freitas, who was in for 40 minutes, a useful little partnership there. They put on 35 in 40 minutes, and then he was caught by Dujon Forge. Lawrence, always entertaining, batted for 35. 35 minutes, hit a 4 over the wicketkeepers. Agus, for goodness sake, stop it.
Yes, Lawrence played extremely well.
He hit a 4 over the wicketkeeper's head, and he was out for now. And Tafel batted for 12 minutes, and then was caught by Haynes on Patson for 2, and there were 54 extras, and England were all out for 419. I've stopped laughing now.
How many times have you heard that now? Can you ever imagine not laughing at it? I doubt it. And so, to the final delivery of the final over. Don't mess this up, mate, or we've lost the game.
And from the British Broadcasting Corporation.
Goodbye.